All right.
Love that.
So, you guys, thanks for coming on. Another edition of Raising Hell in Jersey podcast. It's been a long 2 months since we've done one of these. Kind of hasn't really been much to talk about. Now, with the NHL being back officially January 13th, the World Juniors starting here Friday, most of the games Saturday. So, without that, I guess we'll dive right into it. Jim, you were talking about it a little bit earlier today, I think, and I know, Alex, you put an article out, so I don't know if you guys want to just start there and kind of dive into it a little bit. Like, what can Devils fans expect here out of the World Juniors?
I mean, the Devils got 6 prospects in the World Juniors. Dawson Mercer for Team Canada. I was talking with Justin Levine from the Puck Authority the other day on my show about it. He's really high on Mercer, and Devils fans are going to be really excited when he does come into training camp. He's very good at his position of center, and he's going to definitely add depth to this team. And it's a position that, as Devils fans know, is a need, especially with Zajac getting older. And, you know, he brings a lot. He brings that hardworking mentality to a team. And he treats every game like it's his last, which that's what you want. And he's out there, first guy out there, last guy out there. So he's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to watch him play on Saturday for Team Canada.
I will put it this way. I wrote about Mercer in an article recently on the Puck Authority. What I think about Mercer's game is when he gets into those word battles, he reminds me a hell of a lot of Patrice Bergeron in that sense. And him being a Newfoundlander, I see that shot of his like a young Michael Ryder, and he really does have a good shot. And I would like to see Mercer being that guy, you know, not just playing center, but if he gets kicked out of the face-off circle for Team Canada, you know, from center to right wing to center, you know, he could be a very versatile player, you know, for Canada to keep driving the second and third lines. You know, it would be great to see them win gold.
Yeah,
I was a little surprised that Mercer's been practicing as an extra for Canada, but they're so stacked down the middle that maybe it's not too much of a surprise. I think if he's going to get like serious minutes for Canada, it's going to have to come on the wing, but he plays both positions, so it's not really too big a deal. Like Jim was saying, he has a really good shot. He's a good stick handler. I could see him kind of being, you know, Canada's Swiss Army knife type of player. They just kind of use him in all situations. I think it'll be hard for him to get like a really top 6 role just because Canada's got like 20 first round draft picks on that roster. So minutes will be hard to come by, but he'll get his chance to play at some point, and he should probably do pretty well for Canada, and something Devils fans should be excited to see over the next week and a half.
Yeah, before I kind of dive into that, I'm just going to tell you guys, I was saying to Alex and Joe before, until apparently I subscribe again to Zoom, it has me on like a 40-minute time frame, like limit. So we're at like 10 minutes and 35 seconds in. So at 40 minutes, it's going to kick us out. So I'll send the invite again, and then we'll just do like a second part and then like a third part if we have to. Because apparently I have to subscribe now.
Right,
it's okay. You know, that's part of life. I had to do it. We all had to do it. I mean, it's the way of the world these days with Zoom. But I'm excited for, you know, World Juniors. We're getting hockey, and then we're getting NHL hockey. I'm still skeptical, and I want to throw it around the round table on this. I'm still skeptical of this January 13th date, considering what's going on in Canada with Ontario, BC, and Quebec. You know, Montreal can't practice. Ottawa and Toronto can only do small groups. There has been no clearance yet. BC is still haven't given any clearance yet. And the Sharks are going to start in Arizona for the year. I just don't see January 13th as a possibility. I could see a week later, maybe set the over-under at January 20th, but I want to see what you guys are thinking on that.
Yeah, I think like for the NHL?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, like that it's starting
13th.
13th, yeah. Like, are the Devils going to be starting on the 13th?
No.
probably
the schedule comes out tomorrow. So
yeah, so chances are the Devils are starting first day is probably like slim to none. They're gonna want like the Leafs and the Habs and the Oilers and the Flames and the Canucks and whatever and Winnipeg and Edmonton and all them. They're gonna want all the Canadian teams playing, or the Pittsburgh Washingtons. But the thing I read that I found very interesting is I think Chris Johnston of Sportsnet tweeted it out today. So they're doing it like sort of like baseball. So you're gonna like take a bus, and you would go to, say, the Devils would go to Madison Square Garden, and would play like a 3-game or a 4-game straight against the Rangers, and then they would travel back, and then they would play 4 straight at home against somebody, and then something like that. Which
could be some home and homes also with local teams like that.
I guess it's kind of cool because if you think about it, like if you end up making the playoffs, like you're gonna run into probably one of those teams, so it gives you kind of like an idea to get a feel for that team right off the bat. Like it's basic, in my opinion, it's basically like a best 2 of 3 or best of 3-game series against somebody, and you're getting a feel for them going into the regular season if you meet them in the playoffs. It's kind of cool. Kind of heats up the rivalry a bit.
Yeah, I agree there. I think it's cool to have a setup like that. It's unique. We've never had anything like that in the NHL. But I definitely think they're going to start January 13th. I saw today I think it was earlier this evening, they were saying that the latest the Stanley Cup will be handed out is July 9th. So they're going to have to start on January 13th if that's the case. I know Canada's kind of, I don't want to say they're giving the NHL trouble because they're trying to do what's right. But I think when all is said and done, that there's not going to be, and I think everyone will end up playing in Canada. I think if anyone has to move around, it'll be Vancouver, and they'll probably find another city for them to play in Canada. So I don't think the January 13th start is really going to be too much in jeopardy. I think that's probably a good bet. That's when the games begin.
Mike,
well,
what do you
speaking
think?
of this beginning, we actually have something happening within 41 minutes and 30 seconds. It's USA versus Finland in Alberta. So let's talk about that for a moment. So
I want to hear Mike's thoughts on the season first. I want to see if he agrees because I'm on the opposing side of January 13th is not the start date. I got 2 people saying, it's probably going to happen, but I'd like to hear Mike's thoughts on this.
Yeah, the middle to end of January, I don't really think it makes much of a difference as to when it starts. If we're talking like a difference of January 13th or February 13th, then that's when you might sit back and be like, all right, what's going on here? But I don't really think it makes much of a difference if it's beginning of January, end of January. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the schedule format's gonna play out. I heard too before the weeks leading up to this that they were gonna take a page out of the MLB's book and have the same teams play each other 3 or 4 times and do something like that. So I think in that regard, this regular season, it's definitely gonna have somewhat of like a playoffy type atmosphere where you're gonna have the same teams play each other for a stretch of time. To my definitely. As long as I've been watching hockey, that'll definitely be a first. So one thing I'm really interested in is if they do that during the regular season, I'm really interested to see how that's going to transition over to the playoffs since they're essentially going to be playing the same format.
Yeah, these series we always talk about. Jake and I were talking during the summer about like the Yankees schedule. You go into a series, it's like you look at the standings. You're like, oh, you need to take 3 or 4 if you're playing a 4-game set, or you need to take 2 or 3. It's like you're going into the season knowing that you have to win 2 of 3. If it's a best of 3 series, you need to know you have to win at least 2 games and maybe get, in hockey it's different because you have the loser point. But if you can take 5 of 6 points or 4 of 6 points in every series, that's a good thing, and it probably could get you into the playoffs.
Yeah, and just from a realistic point of view, when you look at the teams that are in the Devils division, my expectations really aren't that high for them for being too particularly successful. Having said that, though, you might have to fact check me on this, but historically, it seems that losing teams always seem to have the best track record against their divisional opponents. So that could be something
with the Devils in Pittsburgh. I mean, what did the Devils win, like 10 straight against Pittsburgh before they got them before the season paused?
Yeah, they always come to play against they always come to play against the Rangers. I think until recently they had a bit of a run like that going against the Flyers. But how they match up against a team like how they're going to match up against teams like Boston, Washington. They're going to play them. I think a total
Buffalo,
of 60
they
times.
really haven't had recent success against Buffalo. Has been one of those teams that they've given them trouble.
Yeah,
and not only have they not had recent success against Buffalo, Buffalo has been outright blowing them out, if memory serves me correct. I think they outscored them like 20-something odd to 6 or 7 last season.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting Buffalo to do much damage like in our division because they signed Hall, and it looks like if Dylan Cousins does end up making that team, they do have a nice balance, top 9, but is Carter Hutton and Linus Allmark really that good of a goalie? I don't think they are.
Their defense is still terrible too. They didn't really do anything to improve that this offseason.
Yeah, still have lessons to the Ristolainen.
Yeah, he's okay. Ristolainen, he's not what everybody expected him to be, right?
Yeah, he's not that great. I guess Rasmus Dahlin is obviously their best defenseman, but after that, it's kind of slim pickings. And like you said, their goaltending is not really good. I think they're the worst team in that division. I think they're even worse than the Devils. So
yeah, I think the Devils will they're one of that team where it's going to depend who makes the roster, comes into camp and makes the roster out of the young guys too, which could play an impact. Let's face it, Ty Smith's probably going to make the roster.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't. Nolan Foote might come. He'll fight for a roster spot, but I feel like he's going to be one of the guys, unless he lights it up. I feel like he'll be one of the guys that gets maybe either. I guess you can't really give him a 10-game look, can you? So he'd be
one 7 games.
Yeah,
now.
it's 6 or 7 games now.
So you get 7 games. I feel like he might be one of the last guys cut. Holtz, I don't think he'll end up going to camp. He has to go back to Sweden, right?
Yeah, he's not eligible to come to camp.
Okay, so him getting another year there is probably a good thing.
March is the earliest that he can actually leave because that's the last day when they play against Linköping.
Okay.
What about Kevin Ball?
Yeah, he's interesting. I don't know how ready he is for the NHL. Physically he's 6'7", 240 pounds, but
monster.
Yeah, I think he would need some time in the AHL. And I don't think the AHL's announced officially when they're restarting, even though they have a tentative date of February 4th or something like that.
How do you pronounce the guy's name that the Devils drafted in the 4th round that's coming over to camp that's been lighting the KHL on fire?
Sharon Govich.
Igor Sharangovich.
Jim and I were talking. We think he's going to make the roster.
Yeah, I did an article with one of my writers, Sam Impaglia. If I'm butchering that, I'm sorry. But we did projecting the Devils roster kind of piece a couple of weeks ago, and I had Sharon Govich making the team as a 4th line center or winger. You could probably stick him on the wing, but he's one of those guys that they just called him back from the KHL yesterday, I think, or 2 days ago. And he's definitely, I wouldn't have said this, if we were on a normal timeline here and we weren't delayed by anything with COVID, I would have never guessed that he'd be contending for a roster spot this season. But he was really good in the KHL, and all of a sudden I think he jumped over guys like Michael McLeod and Nathan Bastian for, a bottom 6 role. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he does at camp. And he was great in Russia. So we'll see. I got him on the roster as of now.
I got him on my projected roster too, but I got him on a 3rd line.
I think everybody's jumped over Nathan Bastian and Michael McLeod at this point.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think they're really bad.
Well,
yeah,
Bastian I think has more upside than McLeod does.
Yes.
Yeah, Bastian was actually all right last year in Binghamton, and you know what he's going to be in the NHL. He's just going to be a 4th liner, so it's not like anyone ever had top 6 expectations for him. So maybe he
am I the only one though that's when you're watching the Devils and McLeod gets called up and say he plays, am I the only one that's wondering, okay, where's that speed that you had in juniors? because it looks like his skates are filled with like cement blocks.
No, I think he's a pretty good skater. It's just like
Unless
the other. What I don't see with